Here's a little help with while loop worksheet number 3. Num is equal to 7. Num is greater than 3, so we system out print 7. Num minus minus. We loop back up to the top. Control expression is still true. 6 is greater than 3, so we system out print ln num. Num is currently 6, and because of the ln, the 6 prints down here. We then subtract 1 from num. We loop back up to the top, and I'm going to stop right there. Eventually, you can see with the pattern 7, 6, 5, eventually num will become equal to 3, and therefore this will become false. Number 2, num is initialized to 64. That is true. 64 is greater than 7, so we system out print num. And then we divide num by 2. We loop back up to the top. Num is still greater than 7, so we system out print num. Because of the print and not print ln, the 32 at this time, the 32, prints out right next to that 4. Num divided by divides itself by 2. It's now 16, and you can see from the pattern here that eventually num will reach 7 or below, and we will terminate this loop eventually. I'm not going to finish that problem either. Number 3, num is initialized to 5. This is true. System out print. Well, we evaluate 100 mod 5. The remainder of 100 divided by 5, hopefully you can do this in your head, the remainder will end up being 0. So we system out print a 0. Num minus minus, we loop, oh, there's a missing curly brace. So please do execute this loop as if there was a curly brace there. That was not meant to be an error. Anyway, we loop back up to the top of the while loop. This is still true. 4 is greater than 0. So we system out print whatever 100 mod num is. And num is currently 4. The remainder that you get when you divide 100 by 4, 2 times 4 is 8, 20, 4 goes in that 5 times evenly. Hey, we get a remainder of 0. So 0 prints out again. We then num minus minus. I'm moving my column over here. Num is now down to 3. We loop back up to the top. We system out print whatever 100 mod 3 is. Well, the remainder of that, I know 3 times 33 is 99, and then there's a remainder of 1, so I can already tell in my head that the remainder is 1. So we print a 1. We num minus minus down to 2, and so on. I'm not going to finish this problem for you. Number 4, num 1 is 1, num 2 is 1, and num 3 is 0. Okay, we start with the for loop, or the while loop I mean to say. Num 3 is less than 14. So follow with me. We evaluate the right hand side of the equals, num 1 plus num 2. Well, that's 1 plus 1, that yields a 2. The 2 gets assigned into num 3. So that means we put a 2 there. Num 1 equals num 2. Well, num 2 is currently 1. That 1 is going into the variable num 1, crossing out the former 1 there with another 1. Okay, num 3 is assigned into the variable num 2 because all these assignment statements work from right to left. So num 3 plugs into num 2. Num 3 plugs into num 2. System out print num 3 with a comma. Num 3 is 2, and we need a comma. We loop back up to the top, erase all of my scratch work, and we do this body of the for loop all over, the while loop all over again. Num 1 plus num 2. That's currently 1 plus 2, which is 3. That 3 plugs into num 3. Num 2 plugs into num 1. Num 3 plugs into num 2. Hey, look, it's kind of like this 2 slid over there and this 2 slid down. It's kind of the way it's working here, and if you haven't noticed. Anyway, we now system out print num3. The 3 prints out with another comma. We go back up to the top of the for loop, the while loop I meant to say, and we do it again. Num1 plus num2 simplifies to 2 plus 3, 5. 5 plugs into num3. Num2 plugs into num1. Num3 plugs into num2. So again, you kind of see the pattern here. You do not have to draw these blue arrows on your scratch work, but I'm just emphasizing the pattern that I see in case that would save time on an AP exam question. Okay, I'm not going to finish this problem. You do the work yourself. Number 5, I'll get you started with this one. In number 5, we have variables rows, which is 4, and columns, which is 3. Hey, look, it's a while loop inside of another while loop. In other words, it's a nested set of loops. Is rows greater than 0? It sure is. Is columns greater than 0? It sure is. So we do system out print a star. We then columns minus minus. We then loop back up to the top of that while loop right there because of the curly brace. See how they're lined up, and that's part of that. Okay, columns greater than 0. It's true. So we system out print another star, and because it's print and not print ln, the second star prints right there. We columns minus minus. We loop back up to the top. This is still true, so we print a third star. Columns goes down by 1. Now we loop back up, and 0 is not greater than 0. This is false. So we are finished iterating the inner while loop. We finally proceed to this line of code, rows minus minus. And then we set columns equal to 3. I'm going to use blue for a certain reason now. Whoops, I meant to do that. And we system out print ln a blank line. You can't really see this in the video, I'm sorry, but the blinking cursor moves down to the next line of output because of the print ln empty parentheses. The curly brace that you can't see on this video tells us to loop back up to the outer while loop. Rows is still greater than 0. So we hit this line of code while columns is greater than 0. We hit it for the second time sort of in this exercise. Columns is indeed greater than 0 at this time because it was reset to 3 a moment ago. So we system out print a star, and because the blinking cursor is down here right now, this star prints here. And then we columns minus minus, bumping that down to 2. We loop back up to the top of the inner while loop, checking columns greater than 0, which is still true. So we system out print another star right here. Print. Columns minus minus. Loop back up. System out print a third star. Columns minus minus to 0. Loop back up to the top. This is now false. So we once again make it down here to this line of code rows minus minus. Carefully annotating that variable here to a 2. Columns is equal to 3. I'm going to use red now. We system out print nothingness. In other words, we come down to the next third line with our blinking cursor. We loop back up to the top of the outer while loop, and we check to see if rows is greater than 0. It is. It's getting closer to 0, but it's still greater than 0. So we hit this line of code again, while columns greater than 0. Columns is greater than 0. It was reset to 3. So we do system out print another star. Let's use red for that star. Or green, let's say. And then we columns minus minus. And you should see a pattern here. You might be able to predict the output. In an AP exam question, you would have choices, A, B, C, D, and E. And so you might have traced this double nested for loop enough to rule out wrong answers on the AP exam. And at this point, you would not continue tracing if you knew that the final answer was something of whatever you figured it out to be. I am not going to finish this problem on this worksheet for you. Good luck.